Hello ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to the channel. My name is Mark Roden, and today we are doing a good, bad, and ugly on the C5 Chevy Corvette, baby! Now listen, I know that the good, bad, and uglies are supposed to be on Sundays, and that I missed it yesterday, and that I'm doing it today, and it's Monday, and I messed up the order, but I suck at this YouTube thing, man, okay? I'm sorry, I forget, and I hate myself for doing it, but today we're making up for it, good, bad, and ugly on the C5 Corvette. I love these cars. My uncle has one, and I've always wanted to talk about them and learn about them, so I did it. Why not? If you guys enjoyed, let me know another car you guys want to see next weekend down below in the comment section. And as always, if you want to support the channel more than you already are, head on over to www.smoothstance.com/shop to pick yourself up any clothes. Let's get right into the video. Alright, so the Chevy Corvette C5 is the 5th generation Corvette, hence the C5 moniker that it goes by. The car was built from the years 1997 to 2004, and it was offered in both a 2-door, 2-seater coupe or a 2-door, 2-seater convertible, with the coupe obviously being the more wanted one because it looks a little bit better and coupes are cool. They also ended up building like a weird hardtop model that pretty much looks like a convertible but with a hardtop on it. It's like right in the middle rounds. It doesn't look as good as a coupe, but it doesn't look as bad as a convertible, so it's a nice car. The car came in only 2 different trim levels, the base model or the Z06 model, and yes, these models changed more than just cruise control and heated seats like some companies that we know. Honda, we see you, Honda, with your LX, EX, DX, EXL, and all those things. It just changes cruise control. Stop doing that, all right? It's annoying. Chevy, take notes from Chevy. Anyway, both these 2 sub-models had completely different engines. The base model came with a 5.7 liter V8 that makes 350 horsepower, and it was called the LS1, and the Z06 came with the LS6, which was a 5.7 liter V8 making 405 horsepower. Even nowadays, horsepower numbers like those are very impressive. I mean, the 370Z, which is one of the most massive cars out there, has 330 horsepower. The BRZ has 200 horsepower. The Genesis Coupe has 350 horsepower. So it's on par with these cheaper entry-level sports cars of today's market, which is really cool to see. But back when it was actually built in the late 90s, early 2000s, that number was even crazier. It came out swinging, baby. It was like, whoa, was like Mike Tyson, and it was crazy. And the car weighs a lot. I mean, weighs very little. Does not weigh a lot. It weighs very little, so those numbers actually do a lot of work. Anyways, the car comes in rear-wheel drive only, and it was offered with both an automatic and a manual transmission, with the manuals being a little bit harder to find now. But if you can settle for a convertible base model, then they are very cheap for what they are. Now it's time to get into the modifying world, and let's state the obvious. They are built to be street monsters all the time. For some reason, you don't really see these cars being tuned into drag cars as much as you would think, because they're American muscle. You would think they'd be on the drag strip all the time, but they still are more than, let's say, a 350Z or a Honda Civic, because it's an American V8 and that's what they do best. But the street builds for this car are out of this freaking world. That's where they really shine. They have an LS in them, and they are super lightweight and aerodynamic, making it an amazing choice if you want to go to some highway racing on a Saturday night. An LS, if you don't know, is such an easy engine to make power out of, and on top of that, they have the aerodynamics to actually be able to cut through air properly, unlike some of the muscle cars that you see in the drag strips. And so they're just built to be very good street racing cars, and they do it really well. They also are starting to be recognized in the modern car culture as a cool car too, which makes me very happy, to say the least. I've always liked the freaking C5 Corvette, and I think they look amazing, and the fact that drifters are starting to modify them, people are putting freaking bags and wide body kits on them, that makes me happy. All right, it makes me happy to see cars going out of their comfort zones, and the Corvette is slowly becoming a one size fits all kind of car, and I love that. It's not stuck being a street car, it's not stuck being a drag car, it's not stuck being a drift car. It can do all of them, and people build them to be all of them. The coolest is when you see these Corvettes turn into show cars, because it's just that thing's on bags. It's a Corvette. Now it's time to get into the good, the bad, and the ugly. And the way this works is first I go over the good, which are things that are just great about the car and you can't deny are amazing. Then I go over the bad, which are things that are up to you. It's a take it or leave it kind of scenario. If you like it, that's good. If you don't, well, that sucks. And then I go over the ugly, which are things that are just bad about the car and need to be addressed. But we will start off with the good, which is how iconic the car is. Now, I don't normally talk about stuff like this in my good, bad, and uglies, but some people really hate it when people give them dirty looks. Like when you're driving your car around and people are just staring at you all angrily. If that's you, then getting something like a 350Z or a Miata or even especially a Civic would be a very bad choice because older people don't like them. Most people that aren't in the car community do not like those kinds of cars. But old people, people that aren't in the car community, girls, everybody in the world respects the crap out of a Corvette. So if you want to make everybody happy, they're very good for that. They're just an icon of the American sports car. Next is the price for a base model. They are so dirt cheap. You get freaking 350 horsepower and amazing timeless styling for under $10,000. That's a great deal. Next is it has pop-up headlights. You can't go wrong with those. I had to put them there. Next up is the looks. In my opinion, it was Corvette's comeback car. The last two generations before this were kind of boring to me. And then they came out with the banger like the C5 and it just kind of took over. The C4 and the C3 to me, I just was like, okay, they're all right. But the C5 came out and was like, hey, we're back. We're Corvette. Don't hate us anymore. And the looks still hold up today. You see a C5 Corvette driving around and you're like, wow, that is a sick car. Next is the engine is literally the most legendary engine to ever exist. Everybody in the car scene knows about the LS and its insane powers, so I have to put it in the good. It is an amazing engine. You can't lie. I know Ford guys are going to hate to hear it, but it's the truth. The engine is unreal. Next is the aftermarket support is huge for performance. Now, if you're really into like body kits and stuff like that, it's maybe not the best choice, but if you're strictly looking for performance, this car has all you could want. Next is the community is huge, but it's all older white guys. Take that how you want it, but when you go to like a parking lot with a bunch of old white dudes that are just happy to be there, happy to share their experience with cars, it's honestly a great time. Next is a unique factor in today's scene. They are slowly on the rise to being a car that everybody wants, but people still don't know that yet. So get in on it before you're too late and they become overplayed, because right now they're extremely underrated. So you buy one of these cars and you have a car that's cool before everybody else thinks it's cool. Next is the hood opens up the cool way. Just had to put that there. I love when the hoods open up the wrong way. It looks sick. And finally, for the good is apparently the trunk space is much better than you would think, which, I mean, I always thought it would be impossible to fit any of my like 12 Yu-Gi-Oh card decks in the back of my 350Z, but I made it work. So I guess it's just like people have this wrong stigma about the amount of space that coupe cars have. But like, yeah, apparently the C5 Corvette, you can fit a lot of stuff in the trunk, and I did not think that, so there you go. Now it's time for the bad, which are up to you if you like it or not. It's kind of neutral stuff. And right off the bat is, you guessed it, the exhaust note. I love it personally. I think it sounds amazing, but sound is completely up to you. So here you go. Here's a clip. Next is the community again. I know I said the community was a good thing, and it is, but it also can be a freaking curse in disguise. We think different things than older people are fun, and sometimes being able to go out and with your friends drifting or going on like some canyon runs and going really fast and being dangerous is more fun than the parking lot chill that older dudes like to do all the time. It's kind of up to you though. If you enjoy sitting in the parking lots and just looking at cars and talking about cars, then yeah, you'll probably love the community, but the community isn't very like rowdy. So if you're into that kind of stuff, might not be the best bet. Next is the exterior mods. There's not a lot. I know a lot of people mix and match parts for this car, and I really like that. It's very creative, but if you don't like being creative, then maybe you should just look into like some Japanese car, because there's not too much exterior mods for this car. Next is the ride isn't the comfiest out there. It is an early 2000s sports car that is literally like on the ground. So if you were expecting the comfort of a Mercedes, then you just kind of stupid, my boy. But yeah, it's not that comfortable. Next is the interior quality is pretty poor. I mean, it looks exactly how you would think a 2000 Corvette interior would look like. Not that good. Putting it out there, it's just not the best. Next is apparently the serpentine belt squeaks like crazy, which if you're either an idiot or just straight up deaf, that can cause a lot of damage if you don't fix it. So if you have one of these cars, or if you're thinking about buying one of these cars, check your serpentine belt, baby, because you don't want that to snap. Next is trying to find a coupe that is worth the money. It's like trying to get Smeagol from Lord of the Rings to give you the ring. It is impossible. They just freaking are eaten up, and just everybody buys them, and it's next to impossible to buy a coupe Corvette that's actually worth it nowadays. And finally, for the bad, is the steering column can lock on you. Once again, that can turn into a huge problem if you don't have a brain, but it's pretty easy to notice before it happens, or at least look to see what condition yours is in. So I couldn't put it in the ugly because that would just be due to being a bad driver of the car, like being a bad owner of the car. You could notice these things, the steering column and the serpentine belt, on your own. So if it does happen to go, that's most likely because you weren't paying close attention. Now it's time for the ugly, which are things that are just god-awful hideous about the car. And I'm gonna start with the hard truth here. She ain't the best for daily driving, baby. As a matter of fact, she's probably the worst of any car I ever did for good and bad and ugly so far for daily driving. It is very, very low to the ground, so you have lots and lots of blind spots. On top of having all these terrible blind spots, trying to get in and out of parking lots that have like big bumps in it is next to impossible. It gets very bad gas mileage. It does have more room than you would think in the trunk, but that doesn't mean that you can fit a freaking TV in there. It's still not like a car that you can haul around things. And it's got 350 horsepower while being rear wheel drive, which for snow area guys like myself, that could be a very big issue if you aren't careful enough. And on top of all that stuff, even if you somehow manage to deal with all that stuff and you just want to take your kids to school, you can't. It has 2 seats. It's not a daily driver, but it wasn't meant to be. But I had to put it here just in case people thought that they could buy a Corvette and drive it year round all the time. It's just a bad choice. Like, yes, you can probably do it, but it's a terrible choice. Next for the ugly is, even though the LS is good for it making power, it isn't the best engine in the world for pure reliability. I said it and I won't go back on it. I've done lots and lots of research. I've seen lots and lots of people's opinions, and based off my conclusions, based off my research, the LS does actually blow up a bit earlier than your average car would. But that makes sense. It was a V8 built to be built, if that makes sense to you. Yes, it's still a good engine and you most likely won't have any issues, but trust me when I say I hear lots and lots of horror stories about LSs, because what happens is people buy them thinking that they're indestructible because of the reputation that they have, when they actually aren't. They are a very good engine, yes, but they still are a performance V8 powered engine. If you're daily driving this thing year round, you're not taking care of it like you should to a performance engine, you're gonna have troubles. It's still a performance engine. You can't drive it like a Camry is what I'm trying to say. And finally, for the ugly, is the brakes tend to go sometimes. That's a big deal. The brakes failing, that is a massive deal, and if I have to explain why, please don't drive. So, does Mark Roden think that you should get a C5 Corvette? 100 times yes. I freaking love these cars. My uncle just recently picked one up, and before that he owned an SRT Challenger, like a new 2016 Challenger, and he already likes the Corvette better than the freaking Challenger. So that's saying something. A 2016 muscle car versus a 2000, I think it's like a 2003 that he has, but a 2003-ish muscle car, and he likes the 2003 one better already. It's crazy. The Vette is the pinnacle of the American sports car, and if you just want a fun Sunday cruiser that you can build to be a bit of a street warrior and just have a great time with a car in general, then I think it's one of the best choices out there. It is an amazing project car, an amazing fun car. But if you're getting it as your first car, do not do that. You will hurt yourself, and that goes for the people who are thinking of daily driving it that live in a winter area too. Just don't do it and save yourself the headaches. Sure, is it possible? Yes, I made a whole video about how it's possible to drive a rear-wheel drive car in the snow, but it doesn't mean you should do it. It's still going to be harder, and especially in a car like this, it's a Corvette. It's a race car. It wasn't built to be daily driven all the time. But that is the end of today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Oh, and let me know another car you guys want to see for next week, baby. Because we're doing them every week, and I forgot to do it yesterday. I feel so bad. Like, you guys are probably like, what? Mark, what are you doing? This isn't the right video. This isn't the right, what are you doing? I apologize for that, man. I apologize. But anyway, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed. Guys, I still can't believe we reached 10,000 subscribers, man. Every day that I'm like making one of these videos, I just think about it, just like pops in my mind. I'm like, wow, I'm talking to 10,000 people right now, and it just blows me away. So thank you guys so much, man. I love each and every one of you. Das Vidania, and have a nice night.